Emporium in Danbury, Connecticut. I've met most of you before. What we're going to be doing this evening is a new event concept called a Night in Santiago. The Flor Dominicana is based out of the Dominican Republic in Santiago. What this is a way for us to bring our experience of the Dominican Republic and what we do in the Dominican Republic to you. So you have the opportunity to see our farms, factories, and what goes into creating this cigar and bringing it to you to smoke. So what we're going to do today is take a virtual journey down to the DR. A quick flight. Those of you online with us will be seeing it here as well. Take a quick flight down to the DR. The good thing about this is I have direction here, so the people who are watching here live on their computers can direct me to be in the middle. The secret is I wasn't actually trying to be seen. But what we're going to do is take a quick flight down to the Dominican Republic and see all of our farms, factories, and what goes into these cigars and what makes them special. One thing I can tell you about the Flor Dominicana, we're about 20 years old. 2014 will be our 20th anniversary as a company. It is owned by Lito and Inez Gomez. Lito is Spanish, from Spain originally, grew up in Uruguay, and Inez is Cuban. They own the company equal parts. Inez handles the distribution and the sales portion here in the United States in Coral Gables in Florida, and Lito controls and handles the blending and the production side of it down in the Dominican Republic. So the jury is out which one has the best side. So what we'll be doing, getting started here, we'll start looking at the virtual farm tour, virtual factory tour. If you have any questions throughout it, please let me know. I'll be doing a little bit of a narration. The cigar you're smoking this evening is a event-only mystery cigar. It's an undisclosed blend. I find it to be medium to full body with a little bit of citrus flavors to it and some pepper. It's a unique blend to kind of try the different tobaccos that we offer in all of our lines. So let's get started on the trip down to the DR. This is Lito Gomez on the left and Inez on the horse on the right. A common fact that we joke around about sometimes is Inez is not a big fan of horses. I have no rumors on this, but the horse that she was riding is no longer alive. That one could have got me on trouble online. We'll find out tomorrow. That's her doing? No. She's just not a big fan of horses. Neither am I.
Maybe she's a good fan of glue.
The factory is located in Tamboril in the Dominican Republic. It's a small suburb outside of the city. It's kind of like growing up in one of the boroughs of New York City. This part you're looking at right now is our recent expansion. We added about 30,000 square feet of space to our factory. What that's allowed us to do is to have more storage for aging and fermentation. And it also has created space for our production area to add rollers and things like that in the future as well. The whole journey we're taking is going to be backwards from the way that the cigar is produced. We're going from here to the farm, then to the factory, then we'll go to the farm, and then you'll get to the seed. Whereas we get the end product here, the way that it gets to us is from the seed to us. The facility you're looking at on the right, we'll go inside here in just a few minutes, is our one of our storage rooms. The tobacco you're looking at right now, Lito said that's about 3 million cigars worth of tobacco. And as you can see, there's still a lot of empty space in there. It's about 2 weeks that this was opened when we had these pictures taken. One of the most common questions I've had in here is what's around the tobacco and do the colors of the ropes mean anything? The color of the ropes don't mean anything. They just mean that one's red, one's green, and the other one's blue. The tobacco is also wrapped in a palm tree bark. It's an old Cuban style that Lito started doing several years back. What it's done is helped in the aging and fermentation process and created a higher yield. The tobacco leaves you're looking at now are Ecuadorian Sumatra leaves. It's used on a lot of our Ligero and double Ligero blends. You can see how they're sitting in piles and lines on top of each other. That's where they age and ferment in that area. And you can see the temperature gauge, the thermometer in the middle. That's to make sure that the heat level doesn't get too high and the tobacco doesn't cook itself. That would be real bad when you're actually smoking. If the aging and fermentation process doesn't go along at a steady pace, and it goes too quickly, you'll lose a lot of the leaves and a lot of the product. So the goal is when it heats up too much, you'll rotate from one level to another. So the leaves are on the top would go to the bottom, the ones in the middle would go to the top. And at that point, if it's still heating up too quickly, it'll go into cooling rooms.
These bundles are tied up at the end. How much tobacco is in each?
Make sure you repeat the question.
Yeah, the question was just asked. You can see that the tie at the end where the tobacco's at, where the tobacco's tied up, is about how many leaves are in there. I mean, you could put any number of ones that you want. I don't know exactly how many are in there, but I'd say anywhere between 15 and 20 leaves would be my guess. The reason they're tied up is when they're picked, when we get to the farm portion, that's how they hang in the curing barns. So we'll start seeing the curing barns in a few minutes here, and you'll see why they're tied up. That second layer of string that you see that's going horizontally is just to separate the two lines so you know where one's at, so it's easier to pull them apart. That's our Vice President of Sales, Paul Costo. He's from Texas. A unique thing we're actually doing here at the factory, you'll see in the background a little bit in some of the areas, we're actually growing cocoa beans at the factory to be used in coffee. That's Lito and his son Antonio. Antonio was playing the guitar, it looks like. This one's going out to the people sitting here with me. I know I have a few people that work for my company on this virtual tour and farm factory tour right now, so I got to be really on point with everything I say. Sometimes I've said some inaccurate things, so I got to make sure I correct myself before.
How much time do you spend down at the farm?
The question was just asked was how much time do we as reps spend at the farm? We go down every year in February for our annual sales meeting. So we go down at least once a year. Lito spends traditionally Monday through Friday of almost every single week down at the farm working on all these things. He's really involved, heavily involved in the farming aspect and the agricultural side of it. So that's why he, sometimes you don't see Lito Gomez on the road as often because he's spending most of the time in the quality and control of the actual product. This room you're looking at right now is one of the resting rooms where the tobacco will go in and rest and cool off, one of the cooling chambers I was talking about. Now, when I'm saying a cooling chamber, it's not like a refrigerator. It's taking tobacco that was fermenting too quickly and going into one of these rooms and being prepared to be sorted.
What's the average temperature?
When we were in there, I'd say it's in the upper 70s. As you're looking at the question was about the average temperature in the room. It's not cold. It's warm. It's just cooler than the aging and fermenting process. If you put it at another level, it's not a compost pile, but when you would use a compost pile, that's the type of fermentation you're talking about. It's not like fermenting alcohol or anything like that. That's a picture of our Double Ligero 700 Maduro. That's our #1 seller. Another thing about that resting room we were just looking at, where the tobacco is sitting, when you walk in rooms like that, it's pretty much an airtight room. It smells of really strong ammonia from the ammonia leaving the leaves. Now we're getting into the rolling room. You can see the ladies there sorting the wrapper and the binder and filler tobaccos by color. They'll take wrappers and sort them by color and put them in bunches of 50 to be sorted out and to be spread out amongst the rollers in the rolling room. Now they work in pairs of 2. One does the binder and filler and the bunching and the filling and the blending part of it, and the other one will do the rolling. So on average, they'll roll anywhere from 400 to 450 cigars in a pair of 2. Now we're going to watch a rolling video in a minute where they're rolling our Mysterio, our Ligero Mysterio blend. The pair of 2 there does about 200 of those a day, since it takes almost double the time to roll that. It's one of our more expensive regular production items, a dual wrapper with two different shades to it. It has a natural wrapper and a Maduro wrapper. Now, the room you're looking at now that was just with the cigars in it um, is the final resting room where every cigar, once it's rolled, goes in weights and where we pull from to test and make sure the flavors that we expect of each blend are there. And when it's finally there, then it will go to one of our finishing rooms. The picture you're looking at right now is the chisel. They do everything by hand. The reason the molds are there, it just ensures that what they did by hand is perfect. The question was, what is harder to roll, a larger diameter cigar or a smaller diameter cigar? Answer to that is smaller cigars are much more difficult to roll. One of the common questions, to get a wire Lancero is more expensive than something that would be a 60 ring gauge. It's more challenging to roll that cigar, especially the one we're looking at now. He's working on the Mysterio. That's one of our more difficult cigars to roll. So this gentleman rolling it's one of our top rollers. And you can see how much effort, how many cuts go into just putting the wrapper on. What he's grabbing from his right is the binder and filler, and all he's doing is the wrapper. So he's already made about 15 cuts, and he hasn't even started to apply it yet. The question was, what happens with the excess tobacco from the cuts? If it's big enough, what we'll do is use it for caps. You'll use it on the caps, so you can cut a little. You'll see some of the thing when he does the cap. You could use it if it's big enough for that. If it's not, it just gets discarded. We only do long filler cigars, so there's no chopped up tobacco going into any of our cigars. So the scraps are truly scraps.
What's the adhesive that they use? Potato starch, vegetable starch?
Yeah, the adhesive that you saw him use is a vegetable starch, flavorless vegetable starch. It forms a glue-like substance that's you can't really notice once it dries. It just goes right into the leaf. Has no caloric value or anything like that. This is my favorite part. He's about to put a little pigtail on the top. I always get asked, people are like, oh yeah, could you do this? I could do it, but it'd take me probably about 2 hours to do one of them. And it wouldn't look as good as this guy does in 2.5 minutes.
Do they find this job at all tedious?
The question was, do they find the job tedious, the rolling and the wrapper, part of making the cigars? I mean, it's their lifestyle. It's part of their culture. It's part of their history. I'm sure they have bad days when they go to work sometimes. I'm sure there's times they like going more than often than not. But we have to remember it is something it's an art form in their culture. It's something they're very proud of. So these rollers, these people who do the rolling are proud of it. And it's something that it's a passion of theirs in their life. So I'm sure that there's times where it may be tedious to them, but the other 99% of the time it's something they love doing and something they've grown up their whole lives doing. So the room you're looking at now is the finishing room. After those cigars are deemed that they're ready to be released to the public, they will then go to the finishing room where they're banded, cellophaned, and put into boxes. And then from there, they'll ship from Santiago to Coral Gables in Florida. And from Coral Gables in Florida, they ship out to cigar shops like Buttheads here in Danbury, Connecticut. One of the most unique things for me when I was down there that I found was in the Dominican, especially at our factory, but most of them as well, the rollers are mostly men. The women are in the real detail-oriented parts. So they sit there, they look at the colors, they have a more keen eye for details. So in our sorting position, you see a lot of the women. In the finishing room, you see a lot of the women. And that's the most important part of it for us, is to make sure that cigar not only tastes the way it should taste every time, but it looks exactly the same every time when you look in a box. So when you look at like our mystery event cigar, and each of them are all exactly the same color, some of us take that for granted because it should be that way. But the people who do that are the people that work in that finishing room. Now, as we get into the farm portion of it, the farm is in the La Canela Valley in the Dominican Republic. It's the driest valley in the DR. The reason why that is good is because the plants grow better with a large amount of sunlight. We'll get into that a little bit more as we get further into the part of the farm. But what you're looking at right now are seedlings. The reason we do seedlings in greenhouses like this is because if you just take the seed and plant it into the ground, the chances and the opportunity of it to grow are much lower. If you do it in a greenhouse, when you plant them then in the ground in the fields, the plant's already growing, so you have a much higher success rate and a much higher yield with the tobacco. What that does for us with a higher yield is allow us to offer you a higher premium end, higher quality product at a lower price. This field you're looking at right now had just been primed and picked, so that was the end of the growing season there. We tend to, in the off-growing seasons, grow soybeans that we would then recultivate into the soil to bring the protein back and make the plants more healthy in the ground, more nutritious for when we plant the next crop.
What's the lifespan of the growth, and what month and when do you harvest?
Okay, the question was, what's the lifespan? What's the whole span of time from when it's planted to when it's actually picked and put into curing barns? It's generally about 90 days from the time that it goes into the ground to the time that it starts priming. What priming is just the picking stages. There's three parts of the plant: the ligero, the viso, and the seco. Ligero is the very top part, viso is the middle, and the seco is the bottom. There are other portions of the plants, but those are generally considered dirt dwellers. It's tobacco that you generally see in cigarettes. So you don't really use that bottom portion. So the priming part, after that 90 days or when the plants are ready, you'll start picking the bottom portion of the plant, and then you pick that center portion of the plant, and then you pick the top portion of the plant, the last part.
I thought the ligero was the second section down, the Latino or Madonna.
The ligero is the very top portion of the plant, absolutely. Well, the very top is the flower part of it, but the three actual usable portions, there's different categories. You can break it down into 5 if you want, but the basic categories are the 3: the ligero, the viso, and the seco. The ligero are going to be the top 25-30% of the plant. Higher nicotine content, which generates stronger body and generates a fuller flavored, fuller bodied smoke. Now, before the priming happens, you saw a few pictures of some really nice flowers there. The flowers are the way that the plants produce seeds and reproduce. Now, the whole goal of the plant is to make the prettiest flower that it possibly can, so it's going to take all of its nutrients and send it to the flower. What happens when that flower flowers on all the plants, they'll go around and cut the flower off. It's called crowning. What that then does is focus the plant's nutrients onto the leaves and focuses the leaves and allows them to grow at a healthier level and create a more vibrant crop of tobacco. Now, since we're here in Connecticut, Connecticut is very well known for shade-grown tobacco. The cloths you see on the top are called cheesecloths. What that does is cut off about 60% of the sunlight, and it allows the plants to grow towards the sun. So if you take a plant and put it in your house, it will then naturally grow towards the window. Same type of concept, so you have a more uniform shaped leaf. Now, after the plants are primed and picked, they then go into the curing barns, which we're looking at right now. That's where they dry to a point where there's still some moisture to them, but it takes the green chlorophyll color out of the chlorophyll and the green color out of the tobacco. And you can see Jazz there, who's one of our sales reps. He's pulling apart the leaf. Leaves are actually cured properly, and when they are cured properly, have an elastic quality to it. You can pretty much pull them apart, and they won't break. You have to pull them apart very lightly, though. So we're not going to have like a leaf pulling contest here anytime soon.
How old are those structures that they're operating?
We've had, in 1996, late 96, early 97, Lido first purchased the farms. Lido Nez first purchased that. I don't know the exact acreage we purchased it at that time. We have about 250 acres of farm property right now, which goes into our cigars. So those structures, you're probably looking at 20-year-old structures at least, as long as we've been in business. Some of them are newer. We've built more as we expanded over the years. Some of the property that we purchased had some, but the ones at the very front are the original structures that have been there for quite a while. The goal is all the sides. The question was about the structure and the way that the curing barns are. Those thatch roofs and thatch sides that you're seeing, when they're drying out, the whole key in curing is the temperature and the climate inside. You don't want it to be too humid. You don't want it to be too dry. So what those thatch sides will open up, and and the thatch roofs will help keep the moisture in and help easily regulate the humidity and the climate that's inside. So anytime during the day, if it's getting too humid in there, we will open them up and completely change the air that's in there. That's an empty curing barn. Now we produce on any given year close to 4.5 million cigars, give or take. So the tobacco that you're looking at, out of that tobacco, and when you smoke one of our cigars, about 70 to 80% of every single cigar you smoke comes exclusively from our farm. One of the most unique things with La Flor Dominicana is the tobacco we use for our cigars is only for our cigars. We don't sell cigars, and we don't sell tobacco to other farms. We don't sell tobacco to other manufacturers. We also only produce cigars for ourselves. So the tobacco you're looking at and the acreage is a lot of acreage to have for the amount of cigars we're producing. So we have a very strong infrastructure on the low end, on the bottom end of a pyramid. What that structure allows us to do is allows us to use the best crop exclusively for ourselves all the time.
You work there, do you get free cigars?
The question was if I work there, if the people that work there, do they get free cigars? Yeah, they're able to smoke a lot. It's kind of unique. The people who smoke, the cigar that smoked the most at the factory is the Digger, the 8.5 by 60 ring gauge Digger.
Well, we won't be seeing much of Riley in the near future.
Now, a few of the items we were looking at were our new Oro line, our Casa de Tobacco limited edition from last year, our sampler sets. Now, that's the virtual farm and factory tour. If you're online watching, we are going to watch another video in just a few minutes. Thank you. If you have any questions here at Buttheads, we'll be asking some questions. So if you'd like to stay on after the next video, please stay on and listen to any of the questions we may have. I'm sure there'll be a lot. Now at our factory, it's not all fun and it's not all work all the time. It's sometimes we do a little bit of fun and games. So what we're going to watch is a video that we made in the farm, at the factory. The tune that you hear may sound familiar to some of you. It's the song "Gunman Style," performed by our factory workers. And Lito himself starring in the middle portion of it. He's got some great dance moves. The question that was just asked is, will I be dancing? The answer to that is no.
Also, you can tell people you're the guy in the red suit.
I think I should shut the microphone off. There are people dancing here at Buttheads right now.
That's all me. I basically do it off camera.
They're too shy to do it on camera, apparently. Oh, please don't then. So that's a brief showing of Lito Gomez style. Now we do have some food here for you as well. It's churrasco, some plantains, some rice, some black beans. Please help yourself. There's enough ton for everybody. For those of you that are online and that watch it tonight, we appreciate it. For those of you that will watch it in the future on YouTube, thank you for taking part in our night in Santiago. Keep an eye out for a retailer near you hosting one of our new events. It's a great experience, and I hope everybody gets a chance to get out and experience one sometime. So from La Flor Dominicana, from Lito and Inez Gomez, Jonathan Carney, and us here at Buttheads Tobacco Emporium, we appreciate your time and appreciate your coming out with us this evening.